We're trying to both squeeze in this little tiny thing here. Okay, my name is Kasie Harriet, and I am the R3 coordinator for the state of Oklahoma and National Wild Turkey Federation. And thank you guys for being here. R3 stands for Recruitment, Retention, and Reactivation. So essentially what I do is help to create programs and initiatives that get people outside hunting and participating in the outdoor sports. So right here we have our resident game warden, Lincoln County Game Warden Jacob Harriet, also my husband. And we're going to go over today the basics of how to hunt dove here in Oklahoma. We have a PowerPoint. I'm going to attempt to share a video. You guys know if you've ever attended these, sometimes we have audio problems, but I think I have circumvented that. We're going to go over some regulations, and then we're going to open it up to a Q&A at the end. So if you guys are thinking, if you guys have a question as we go through this, just type it in the chat box, and then I'm going to field those at the end Jacob and I can do our best to answer them. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get into the PowerPoint. Cool. We do that. Sure. Yeah, we've never done it like this format. Jacob, get in there. Maybe we shouldn't do it like this. Okay. This might be a disaster, but I think it would be nice to be able to see us instead of just a PowerPoint. So, okay, this presentation was made in part by myself and National Wild Turkey Federation. So goals of a dove hunt. Safety is paramount. Before we talk about anything else, we need safety first. We want everybody to have fun, learn about the experience of the hunt, spend time with friends and family. Dove hunting is a super social sport. You can talk, you can laugh, you can not even have to wear camo. It's pretty interactive and a good first hunt for a new hunter. Meet new people. I encourage you guys, if you are a seasoned dove hunter, to always invite somebody new hunting. Like I said, it's a social sport. You can take a lot of people hunting dove too, and harvest some tasty dove for dinner. I bought them dove poppers.
So safety wise, of course, we just want to be careful. Anytime we have fire, we need to be careful. Earplugs and eye protection is very important. We have a lot of people that even if they're off a long ways, they might catch a BB in the eye. So I always recommend wearing some sort of safety glasses. Hunter orange is not required, but it's always good to know where your people are, especially with dove hunting. You're often in larger groups, and just with more people, the more danger there is, but also the more fun. It's a great way to get people into hunting that have never hunted before. There's not a whole lot of stress, or it's hard to mess up a dove hunt. And just get out there and have fun, take somebody new, and have a good time. So the legal dove in Oklahoma, mourning dove is the most common that we have around here. The white-winged dove, there's a lot of those out west, and then the Eurasian collared dove is actually an invasive dove, and so they don't actually count to your limit. But that's the three main species of dove. Also, you run into pigeons occasionally, and pigeons are 100% legal to harvest as well.
Let's talk about the IDing of the mourning Eurasian and white-winged.
Okay. Uh, so the mourning dove is kind of just a smaller dove. It usually has, some speckled black wings on it. They're very petite bird, usually has some sort of blue around the eye. The white wing, like it says in its name, you can really tell when they fly, but they have a very distinct white wing. That's how you normally tell those apart. And then the Eurasian collared dove actually look more like a pigeon than they do a dove. They're way larger and they have that black collar around their neck as well. And then, of course, a pigeon. Anybody knows what a pigeon is has been around the city. So,
Dove are seed eaters. They feed on sunflowers, wheat, corn, millet, oats, and other grains. So this is some of the typical ag crops that you see or food plots. So you see the seed heads on these, the proso millet, the brown top millet, the sorghum. You see this, how loose those seeds can be. And so when farmers harvest these, a lot of times there's tons of seed laying down on the ground, and that's a honey hole for
yeah.
dove.
And ag fields are definitely a great spot to hunt, but don't think you have to have an ag field to hunt. Some of my better hunts that I've had have been like overgrazed cattle pasture. So dove are a small bird and they have to be able to find those seeds. So in those overgrazed cattle pastures or something with a lot of bare ground, they can get on the ground, they can walk around safely and pick up those seeds. Also, any place that has a lot of disturbance, like for instance, last year we had a housing addition come in and bulldoze lanes to put roads in. It was the best dove hunting spot I saw that year, and it's because there was clear ground and the early successional habitat, the different crotons and wild sunflowers and stuff came in and were dropping seeds. So they really like that bare ground, and our native plants will outperform ag plants, any day of the week. It's just having bare ground so they can get to them.
Next side, really pretty. Of course, sunflower seeds are hard to beat.
Yeah, they love sunflowers, and like this, is an agricultural field, but we have a ton of different varieties of native sunflowers, and they will hammer those things as well. They just have to have bare ground underneath them.
Dove often land on snags or power lines. That's where I can kind of often see them before they get down to feed in the evenings and in the mornings. Point stitches, borders between stubble, plowed ground, like Jacob mentioned, fences and tree lines. Tall trees or other structures serve as reference points for flying dove as well. They like to sit there, not roost there necessarily, but sit there and rest before they get down to feed in the morning and evenings.
Yep. Yeah. So it's kind of, just think of it as a security feature for them. They like to get up somewhere high where they can sit up there. They can look around, say, "Hey, there's no predators there. Looks like the food's still good," and then they'll come in after that. But I mean, it's usually dead trees and power lines are kind of a magnet. If you have a good food source or a good water hole around with a good, standing tree or power line, I bet there's going to be dove on it.
So another thing is if we're a few days away from season opener, a good thing to do, and you can scout for dove, whether they're there short term or not, you can go around and you can check power lines and stuff. You can see where they're at in the area. And that's a good way to kind of plan your first hunt of the season.
Yep. And although that picture right there is pretty tempting to shoot at, please do not shoot any power lines. That's frowned upon. So firearms, really anything works. Usually 20, 16, 12 gauge. That's the most common. The auto loader or semi-automatic is great because it loads for you. You don't have to load. Dove are very fast and often they come in big groups. So it's beneficial to have multiple shot opportunities. Those auto loaders will load for you. If you got a good pump or a double barrel, you can get those shots off as well.
Yeah, and when he says anything will work, any shotgun will work.
Yeah, yeah. Shotgun is the main thing that we use to hunt dove. You can use other things like archery equipment, but shotgun is by far the most effective. They're a small bird, they're quick flying, so having that shotgun really helps you out.
Yeah. And when we said any type of shotgun, that could be pumps, double barrels, over and unders, like what that guy has right there, work fine. But the semi-automatic, is that what they're called?
Yes.
Semi-automatic or auto loaders are the best for those three quick shots.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit later, but you need to plug your shotgun and we'll elaborate on
Yep.
that.
And also another thing to think about when we're shooting at these dove, it's happening real fast. We need to be cognizant of where our shells are going because we don't want to leave those laying around. So sometimes with those pumps and semi-automatics, you get into a group of birds and you sling those shells a long ways away. I like the over and under simply because I can keep up my shells. I'll shoot my two shots, break it over, put those shells in my pocket, and then I don't have to worry about hunting shells afterwards. So shot size, so dove are very small, and here's a pretty good demonstration of different shot sizes. The higher the number, the smaller the shot. Probably the most common I see are sevens and eights in the field. But when you buy your ammunition, if say I have a 12 gauge shotgun, I'll match that box of ammunition to my shotgun. So it'll be a 12 gauge 3-inch shell or 2 3/4 inch shell, and then it'll have the shot size, which would be 7.5. And that just shows you this shot size that we're using for these animals.
Pre-hunt practice is very helpful. You can shoot clay targets, clay pigeons, practicing how to lead that clay pigeon, how to do the follow through. Is super important to a successful dove hunt. Dove hunting is probably one of the hardest. They're probably one of the hardest targets to shoot. They're so fast and agile, and can turn on a dime in the air. And so practicing, getting familiar with shooting, follow through is really important.
Yep.
So we recommend if you guys are hunting in groups to kind of space yourself out around 75 yards for safety purposes.
Yeah, so the best thing you can do is either be sitting right next to each other where you have a line that you can shoot safely. But a lot of times, especially with dove, it's common for a whole bunch of people to hunt the fields. And when you're doing that, you've got to be really careful of where people are. So by having that 75-yard spacing, that shot's very small and the risk of injury goes down a lot with spacing. So I mean, I've been shot 1,000 times by dove hunters, but fortunately it's all been at about 200 yards and the BBs literally just fall down on you like rain. But if you're up close and personal, it can do a lot of damage still. I know some people that have lost eyes and had to have lots of BBs removed from, accidents in the dove field.
During the time of watching and waiting, the hunter must practice important safety and handling rules. Always keep your gun pointed in a safe direction. That is the number one gun handling safety tip.
Yeah, unloaded or unloaded, make sure that those guns are always in a safe direction. If that gun is never pointed in an unsafe direction, you'll never have an issue. Even if you do have an accidental discharge or something happens, as long as it's in a safe direction, you got nothing to worry about.
Yeah. And the good rule of thumb is make sure you can always see daylight under the dove when you're shooting. That if you can't or if you're not sure, just do not shoot. Remember, once you pull that trigger, it's too late to wish you hadn't done it.
Yeah, and the reason for the sunlight underneath where you're shooting at is just to make sure that there's not any people in the tall grass. You see this picture there in a cornfield. That corn covers up a person's body, but those BBs will still go through there. So if a low line dove comes through, you took down and shoot. Well, there might be somebody in those corn stalks, and you just don't know it. So having that sunlight there is a good safety net.
Right. Another rule of thumb is. Whoa. Okay. I don't know what that was about. Another rule of thumb is to always kind of make sure the dove are within 25 or 35 yards before shooting. That is super important because of the range of your shotgun shells. Remain motionless until the incoming dove is within your range. Shoulder your gun quickly, keep your head on stock. Like I said, swing through the dove, pull the trigger, follow through with the shotgun swing in one smooth, continuous motion. That follow through alone will make make a big difference. A lot of times you'll shoot in front or behind, but if the dove, but if you use that sweeping follow through motion after you shoot, for whatever reason, I don't know the physics behind it, but it makes all the difference in the world. And I have to check myself every dove season when I go to hunt dove that I need to do the follow through.
Yeah, I teach lots of people how to shoot, and that's the number one thing when you're having a moving target is they try to follow the target, find it, stop and shoot. And by the time your brain tells you to stop and shoot, you're going to shoot behind that dove or behind that pigeon every single time. So definitely make sure you follow through on that. Now the ranges for dove, different shotguns are different, and you can put different chokes in your gun to shoot further or closer. But that 25 to 35 yards is a good rule of thumb. You don't want them too close because if they get too close, you end up damaging the meat when you're not able to use it. But that 25 to 30 yards is a really, really good thing.
Mm-hmm.
So our bag limit in Oklahoma is 15 dove, and Eurasian does not count towards that. So you can have 15 Eurasian, 15 mourning dove or white winged dove combined, and then your Eurasian, you can have as many as you want. There's no limit on them, but with those Eurasians, you have to have proof of sex or what they are. So you either leave a head or a wing on there. But that is the best way to know your limit. The Eurasians don't count, pigeons don't count either, so you can shoot as many pigeons as you want.
When you harvest, don't you have to leave a wing? How does this work?
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
you're supposed to leave a wing on the birds. With a morning and white wing, as long as you're within your limit, you're fine. But those Eurasians, you need to have some sort of proof of sex on there.
Okay.
So it is your responsibility to shoot these dove. I had a group of guys a couple years ago that they were shooting dove and they'd fall in the woods and he was scared of snakes, so he wouldn't go in and look for them. It is your responsibility once you shoot those dove to make an effort to find them and keep them. We don't want to waste our meat, so you'll get a ticket for that every time. So make sure you're trying to find those birds. It can be difficult in tall grass to do the best you can. Uh, all the game wardens understand that, yeah, you're not going to find everyone you shoot, but we want to do the best that we can to do that. And then hunting license wise, it's pretty simple for a dove. You just need your general hunting license and then your HIT permit, which the HIT permit is a harvest information program that's federally required. It's a free permit and it's actually a survey. So we use that to kind of keep track of who's harvesting how many animals in a certain area. So it'll talk about geese and ducks and teal, and all the different migratory birds. It's kind of how we keep track on stuff. Uh, you're exempt from the HIT permit if you're under 16 or over 64. And then if you're under 18 in Oklahoma, you do not need a hunting license. Youth hunters do not need to have a hunting license now for dove.
All right, so check your auto loading repeating shotguns. It needs to be plugged, like we mentioned.
Yep. So a plug is something that makes that gun not capable of holding more than 3 shells. So that's two in the tube, one in the chamber. Basically, when I come out and check people, I'll take shotgun shells and I will put it in the tube. And if I can fit more than 3 shells in there, or I can fit more than 3 shells in the gun, including the one in the chamber. It's a citation, and that's for all migratory birds. Be careful. There's a lot of birds that look like dove on the flight, and it's your irresponsibility as a hunter to be able to look at that and tell the difference. So one thing I see a lot is scissor-tail flycatchers. They actually like dove decoys and they'll come into them. So you got to be careful not to shoot those. Also, there's a nighthawk, which is like your whippoorwills, and they are very common and they kind of look like dove as well. So make sure you ID that bird before you shoot it. It is a violation to shoot one of those birds that is not a legal species.
Having a well-trained hunting dog can add to your hunting experience. This is something that I don't know a whole lot about, but I'm sure the retrieving capabilities
Yeah.
of that we talked about that would help big time if you had a dog or knew somebody that had a dog that could retrieve dove
Yeah,
for you.
good dogs are priceless. I mean, they're able to find those birds that we just wouldn't be able to find. That being said, one of my favorite things about doing my job is watching somebody hunt that their dog will not listen to them. It is hilarious, especially when they don't think anybody's watching. But yeah, dogs are great. I've hunted with some that are just fantastic. It's great.
Okay, we do need to talk a little bit about decoys. This is a Mojo decoy. It's a battery operated decoy you stick in the ground, and the wings twirl on it. So dove love to see motion.
Yep.
If they see other dove hanging out, they want to hang out with them too. And adding a next level to your hunt would be adding one of these decoys with the motion. Even you can get wind powered ones too, but anything that shows a little bit of that flutter that dove's wings do, it'll draw them in from across a huge field.
Yeah, and they see that motion, and it's the way their eyes work. That's what they're looking for is motion. So those decoys that spin or have the whirligig wind turbines, they just draw them in. So dove want to be where other dove were because if the dove are there, that means there's food there, and they're always looking for food. They're a very social bird. Sometimes you'll get singles, sometimes you'll get groups of 100 birds coming at a time. So it just varies. But having something that looks like a dove that is feeding is very beneficial.
Yeah. Okay, this last slide here is in ODWC, or the Wildlife Department, offers a interactive dove map. So we've asked all of our biologists from across the state that work on their WMAs to add all their dove fields to this interactive map. So you can go in, you can specify by food plots, bodies of water, so like a stock tank, a guzzler out in Western Oklahoma, agricultural fields, or like ponds and such. And you can go in and zoom and kind of plan, see what's near you that is available to hunt. I can show you, I'm gonna have to end up stop sharing my screen. And then I'm going to share it again on my webpage. I can show you where to get to these. Here, let's see. Actually, okay. So this is how you would go to the hunting tab. You would go to, you go to hunting resources. So you go to wildlifedepartment.com and you go to hunting resources, and then you go down to, actually, let me log out of this real fast. I was on the editing page of it. That would make things a little bit easier. Okay, so this is our main page. You go to hunting, you go to hunting resources, and this is a great resource for you guys for anything in the future. And we have big game, we have small game, we have migratory birds. So I'm going to go to migratory birds. And this is our dove hunting page. It shows the regulations, the HIP permits, and the dove fields, a couple of videos here, helpful links. So we will go to the dove fields. And this is an interactive map. And you click go to, and I'm going to attempt to do this, but a lot of times it's a little slow to populate on my laptop at least. So you hit agree and you can zoom in and you can see all the dove fields in a certain area. So right here, You can click on that one. And that is that Keystone Wildlife Management Area. It is a 10.4 acre food plot. So you can kind of break it down and kind of plan your hunt and see what's all around you. So this is a cool new feature we've had for a couple of years now, and it is up to date to the day. So I would always check. If you go and check and a week later you go try to go hunt that field, check again, because these are agricultural fields and these are working properties. And so some of them might be doing a fire or cutting crops and stuff. So just check. It is the biologist's job to update these if they manipulate the fields in any way. Okay, I'm going to move to another video. So before we take questions, I do want to just show this video real fast. It's just it's a video Jacob and I created probably 5 years ago when COVID hit, and we were just putting these little short 5 to 7 minute videos around, but it kind of shows you, we'll kind of just be solidifying what we've already said, and it shows you a couple of dove decoys in action. And I'm just going to play it. If you guys can confirm that you can hear this once I play it, because I'm not sure how the sound's going to work there. So,
hi guys, Kasie Joyner and WTF R3 coordinator here. And today we're going to talk about dove hunting. We're going to go over a few habitat situations. We're going to talk about where you set up, and we're going to talk about some laws and regulations that you need to know before you go dove hunting. So let's just get into the video. All right, one way to increase your success in the field is by looking at habitat. Dove like 3 things to be happy. They like water, they like food, and they like a place to sleep at night or roost. So first place you should start is looking for a water source in the place you want to hunt. Whether it be a farm pond or a cattle trough or a windmill, those are all great sources of water, because those dove will like to fly off the roost, go get a sip of water in the morning, and right before they fly up in the roost at night, they like to go get a sip. So that's an ideal spot to set up. And these places, they like to have clearance around them, just like any prey animal. They like to see their surroundings and to see if there's any predators near. The second thing they need is food. So I'd be cautious of what you're hunting over, what kind of ag fields you're hunting over. Some of the best dove hunting I've ever hunted over was cut sunflower fields. So, for example, I would look at millet fields or sorghum fields, cut millet or sorghum fields. I would look at sunflowers or rye or wheat fields that have just been recently cut, because those will have lots of loose seed in the ground, and those dove will scratch that up. They also like places next to gravel roads, because, for example, like an oil pad on an OLAP property, we have a lot of oil pads on OLAP properties. They like to go get into that gravel and find small rocks to put in their crop to help grind up that seed that they were just eating. So keep that in mind when you're starting to look at places and scout places to hunt. The third thing is locate where the dove are roosting at night and set up under those trees or near those trees. Now, those dove will be coming in really fast. They'll be zip bopping in all over, and it's some of the fastest, funnest shooting that you'll ever have. And I would also, and we'll get into this in a little bit, but I'd suggest setting up decoys around these areas by the water edges or by the roost trees as well.
Alright guys, so just a few basic dove hunting tips you need to know for Oklahoma. As a game warden, when I check you in the field, I'm going to be looking for your hunting license, your HIP permit, which is your Harvest Information Program permit, and you have to have that if you're over 16 or under 64. If you're outside those ages, you do not have to have it. And then I'm also going to be checking your limit of dove, and if your shotgun is plugged. When I say a plugged shotgun, that's a shotgun that's incapable of holding more than 3 shells. So 1 in the chamber and 2 in the magazine tube. On your limited dove, you can have 15. We have 3 species. We have the mourning dove, the white wing, and the Eurasian collared dove. There is no limit on the Eurasian collared dove. So if you do say you shoot your 15 limit of your mourning and white wings, you can continue shooting the Eurasian collared dove as long as they have a head or fully feathered wing attached. And that's the information you need to know to shoot dove in Oklahoma.
All right, guys, so another way to up your dove hunting game is to put out decoys. Now, something that's really popular now are the rotating wing decoys. And there's a couple brands out there. The one I use is called Mojo, and I'll insert a clip here about it. However, the other clip-on ones that you can put on branches and stuff work just fine, and you can get like a 5-pack for $20. And these Mojo decoys are about $25 to $30. So you can get a whole setup for $50, $60. And the reason why we like to use these Mojo decoys is because there's just something with that spin and wing that triggers these dove, it catches the dove's attention. So like right now, I'm set up in some roost trees, and I have the decoy out front, the spinning decoy out front, and then I have about 5 or 6 dove clipped onto these trees right in front of me. And I have a huge view of the sky right here, but I'm kind of tucked back in some grass, although you don't have to be. And I should mention, I have camo on right now. However, it's not necessary. I've hunted doves in neon green soccer shorts before, so it's not necessary to need any of those. However, this is basically a simple setup to have a successful hunt, at least have some coming into us. So. Okay, I also wanted to mention some firearms. So this right here is a 12 gauge Winchester SXP, but I started out with a simple youth model 870 Remington 870 shotgun. That's a 20 gauge. So 20 gauge, 12 gauge, doesn't matter. They'll do the job just fine.
With the talking dove on the ground.
Spooked some dove as I went to talk to you guys. I also wanted to mention a few places that we have public hunting available in Oklahoma. There's 2 ways you can go. You can go on our wildlifedepartment.com page and you can look at migratory birds and click under dove, and you can see the WMA is available for dove hunting. I suggest you call the WMA biologist and ask them if there's any fields been cut or what type of agriculture that they have out there. Another really good popular public hunting area is the OLAP lands, and I'll tag a link of the OLAP lands below as well. However, these are typically ag fields leased by private landowners. There's a lot of times there's oil pads on them, and if you remember how I mentioned before, oil pads with that gravel dirt next to ag fields is like money. It's great. It's a great opportunity for dove, and I've shot a lot of dove off of some OLAP properties. So we'll make sure we add those below. And I'm going to get back to hunting because this decoy is doing its job, and I just jumped some dove as I went to set up this video. Looks like I ended up setting up on the wrong side. I think it was a combination of me spooking that dove when I went to make this video earlier, and the fact that they just kind of like to shift and move. So, that's a part of it. That's part of hunting. Half the fun is just being out here in the great outdoors. So at the end of the day, I'm walking away happy. Okay, so that concludes our dove hunting how-to guide. We really hope that you enjoyed this video, and we want to remind you to take somebody new hunting if you can, and that the outdoors are always open.
Okay, so sorry, that might have been a little cheesy, but that was me 4 or 5 years ago. So, and you can see that when 4 or 5 years ago, we didn't have that interactive map. So I was talking about going and looking at the PDFs and calling your biologist, but now we have that wonderful interactive map that you can use instead. So
Yep.
Jacob thought of a few things.
I want to just talk on some things, some common violations I see, and then also just when you guys are scouting. So primarily when you hunt dove, it's morning and evening. Now those dove will roost all night long. That they don't do very well at night. If they're not in the safety of a roost. So
sorry, you're right. You need a land access permit in order for the.
yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah.
So when we're hunting dove, they've been roosted all night. They wake up, they're hungry. So in the morning, food sources are great. Whether that's a native browse or native seeds and early successional habitat, or it's ag fields or whatever. That's great. Well, they're going to go eat their food, and then they're going to want something to grind it up. So the way a dove eats, they eat seeds, and then they get little pebbles or rocks, and then they eat that, and then their gizzard, it grinds up that seed together, and that's how they digest stuff. So there's a lot of good hunting opportunities just on old gravel pads. If you're in areas where there is just a lot of just natural gravel or rocks exposed, that's a great source. And then water is very important. You can hunt dove all day long if you're where they want to be, but you just have to do some scouting to figure out. And then in the evenings, usually a food source and water is kind of the ticket. Now with dove, it is not 30 minutes after sunset. So you can hunt dove 30 minutes before sunrise to official sunset. You can't hunt after that. And that's to make sure those dove can get to the roost safely before it gets dark. That's a big violation. I see a lot of guys will be shooting and you can actually see the fire coming out of their shotguns because it's so dark at night. They will fly and well after dark trying to get to the roost, but we want to leave them alone at that time. So remember, you got to stop at official sunset. You can see that on our app. We have a sunset chart that's off your location. Uh, Also, another thing I get a lot is people shooting them off power lines driving down the road. So you cannot use a vehicle to aid in your hunt. You can't shoot them off a power line. Anywhere you're hunting, you have to have permission to be on. So make sure you know the landowner and you get permission there. Uh, you do not have to have non-toxic shot. You can use lead to hunt dove. There's nothing there. And then baiting is another thing. So you cannot bait dove legally in Oklahoma. And I get some questions occasionally, they're like, hey, this guy planted this field. Is it baited or not? So the way we determine that is we'll go to the local NRCS office or Natural Resource Conservation office, and they will tell us, is this a normal agriculture practice? Is it not? If you have a bag of wheat dumped out in a big pile, that's going to be baiting. But if you have a field that was drilled in and there's some wheat seed around, that's perfectly fine. So just use common sense with it. If you're not sure, call your local warden. Our numbers are public. You can find it in the hunting regs, or you can just Google Oklahoma game wardens and it'll pop up a list by county. But don't bait, don't shoot them off the road, don't trespass, and get out there and have a good hunt.
Okay, I'm gonna start fielding some questions if you're.
Yep,
down.
I think
Okay.
so.
Okay, can you use lead shot for dove?
Yes, yes. So lead shot is completely legal. The only caveat to that is dove season will cross with like teal season and resident goose. If you're hunting waterfowl, you cannot have any lead shot on your person. So even if you're hunting both simultaneously, you have to use non-toxic shot if you're hunting the waterfowl because they are required to have non-toxic shot.
Looking at the ODWC dove page, the dove fields map, will all dove plots and ag fields be cut before September 1st or at various dates? I think I probably addressed this already, but it is various dates. It's just gonna have to be, just check back the day before you go and make sure, because those biologists are supposed to update that if they do cut or any sort of manipulation on it. Okay, two quick questions. I have an air shotgun. It's still a shotgun, just use compressed air to fire. It's powerful enough to hunt squirrels in 40-yard range, so it's powerful enough to hunt dove too. So can I use my air shotgun for dove hunting? That was the first question.
I'll verify that for you, but I'm not 100%
I've never heard
sure.
of, that's cool. I didn't know that.
I've heard of them before. I've never seen one. Let me look that up for you and I'll get you an answer.
Okay. The second question is, can I use my parent shotgun for dove hunting even when I'm hunting by myself?
So you are supposed to be hunter ed certified. So once you turn 31 in the state of Oklahoma, you're exempt from the hunting license. Before that, you can still hunt, but you need an apprentice designation, which means that somebody that is 18 years or older that has been through hunter safety will be hunting with you. So just use some common sense on that. Now, I was a kid and I probably did a lot of stuff. Well, I guess I had my hunter safety, but make sure you go through that hunter safety class. Once you go through the hunter safety class, you're in good shape. You can take that once you turn 10 years old. And then you're covered. If you have not been through hunter safety and you're under 31, then you're supposed to be with somebody who has been over 18.
And if you guys go Outdoors Oklahoma, you can look at our event calendar and you can see all the hunter eds being taught right now. There's a onslaught of hunter eds being taught right now, and they'll kind of be slowing down towards October. So if you guys still want to get into an in-person one, I suggest you guys go ahead and hop on there and see wherever we is a local area around you and get enrolled in that, because that's crucial. And also, if you don't have time to do a hunter ed on or in person, we have an online option as well. While you're still looking for that, I can answer this second one. It says, in general, should the method of dove hunting be like duck or other waterfowl, where you use a blind and decoys rather than walking and waiting on them to flush like some other game birds? Yes. So doves see motion. Most of the time, you don't ever it's not like quail hunting or like upland game hunting where you walk and bust coveys of quail up or anything like that. It's a sit and wait. You can adjust a couple different times during your hunt, but honestly, our best hunts have been sitting and waiting. You find the pathways where they're going to roost or where they're traveling. You sit and watch the field before you figure out where you want to set up, and take the knowledge that you've learned here today and kind of decide where you want to set. We've adjusted a little bit down edge fields or edges of fields, but not not a whole lot.
It's pretty common that, if you get out there, you can see those birds moving around. And usually if one flies there, more will fly there. So, if you're 100 yards off, you can absolutely move to get into a better spot. But it just depends on where the birds are flying. Now I will say, I have seen situations where you can go and jump dove up like quail. If you're in a field and they're not flying around you, or there's no cover where you could get into range, but they're feeding, I've seen people go and jump them up and had very good luck that way. But that's more uncommon. Normally it's a sit and wait type.
Yeah, and that's also because you don't need to be shooting them on the ground like you learned. They need to be in flight.
Yeah, well, you have to walk up and jump them up.
Yeah. Okay, so our Milo field's good for dove.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the best dove fields I've seen this year so far, it's actually a soybean field, which dove don't have much interest in soybeans this time of year, but previously it was a wheat field and they harvested that wheat and there was a lot of wheat seed still on the ground underneath those soybeans. The soybeans hadn't got super big yet, so there's a lot of bare ground underneath, and I was seeing a lot in there. So that's something, that wheat was a crop from last fall that just is leftover seeds, and that's attracting to dove too. So that's something to think about as you're scouting.
Yeah, someone says, don't forget to get your land access permit in order to hunt overlap.
Yeah.
That has changed this last year.
So we lost the federal grant that was funding our OLAP program. So now we're having to ask the hunters to pay that if they think it's worthwhile, so we can still support the OLAP program. But yes, there is $100 land access fee to hunt OLAP now.
Yes.
So on your pellet gun question, or your pellet gun, so the definition of a shotgun is something powered by black powder or gunpowder. So if you look at our laws, if you look at small game, you're able to use air propelled missiles, which would be considered a pellet gun or a pellet shotgun. For migratory birds, that is not a legal means of take. That being said, depending on where you're at, you can always ask your local warden if he has an issue with it. I don't think I would have that much of an issue with it, depending on the situation, as long as it was effective to harvest it. I would be concerned with that pellet gun's ability to be able to harvest a dove, but I don't know a lot about them.
Which hunt zones in Oklahoma yield the best dove numbers? That varies.
Yeah, usually Western
Oklahoma
Oklahoma is more what you think of, because there's a lot of open ground, a lot of exposed ground, and a lot of early successional habitat. The more east you go, the more trees you get. The trees
conceal.
Yeah, they conceal a lot of stuff, and there's not near as much food in the timber. So ideally, you would think of Western Oklahoma. That being said, there's parts all over the state that are great dove hunting. It just depends on where what location you're in. Another thing I guess we didn't mention of is dove are migratory, so they're moving. So it never fails. It seems like right around September 1st, we get a big cool front and rainstorm, and all the dove that I've been scouting out disappear because they move further south. Now that will also push dove from further north down, but you're actually getting waves of dove every year. Each cool front, it pushes the birds out that you have, and you get new dove coming from up north, and then they go.
Or it could shift, they could shift their entire flyway too. Like
Yeah.
they may not come back, they may shift over some or something. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, they're kind of unpredictable. It never fails. At our house, we have tons of natural sunflowers, and we'll see dove like crazy all of August. And then it's like someone told them September 1st opened up and that's
Yeah.
dove season, and they're gone.
And I think Friday we're scheduled to get a big rainstorm and cool front come through, so it's going to happen again this year, I think. And we always get more dove coming. Another thing to think about, there is dove season goes to October 31st. So usually when deer season starts, people forget about dove hunting. They don't do it near as much, but it is open all that time. And there's also a season in December from the 1st to the 29th of December, which is a very good time to hunt as well. But most people are just more focused on deer hunting and other kinds of hunting at that time of year, but it's a great opportunity to get dove.
Yep. Hopefully we answered your question there, Brett. Good deal. Will lead shot poison the meat?
So lead is definitely not good to digest. I mean, you don't want to eat it. When I cleaned up, I pulled those pellets out, and I haven't had an issue. People have been shooting stuff with lead for a long time. Haven't had any issues. I don't think it's probably the best for you. Non-toxic shot would probably be a more healthy option, but it also is more expensive and not as efficient in most cases, or in some cases, I guess. Some of the non-toxic is very, very effective, but
in my personal opinion, I would avoid it because I wouldn't want to worry about accidentally missing a BB and ingesting it. That's just my own. That's scary, lead poisoning. So
you're not going to get lead poisoning from one BB. So I wouldn't be too worried about it.
Can I eat sunflower seeds? Is that considered baiting?
You can eat sunflower seeds. Just use common sense on that one.
No question. Thanks for taking the time to make a video. It was very informative. You're welcome, Austin. Thank you, guys. Can you have more than one gun if they're all plugged?
You can have as many guns as you want as they're all plugged. A lot of my guys that like goose hunt and dove hunt at the same time, they're using non-toxic shot, but they'll usually have a 12 gauge or a 10 gauge. It'll shoot a 3.5 inch shell, and then they'll have like a smaller 20 or 12 with lighter loads in it for dove.
Does a child with a parent need to get the OLAP permit as well?
So if they're under 18, they do not. They're exempt from that permit.
Why can you hunt naturally placed seed but not baited? Doesn't make sense to me. Explain the bait thing. Bait must be gone for 10 days before hunting that spot, right?
Yeah, so the baiting is basically you're piling up, and you know, for certain animals like deer, you are allowed to use bait. In general, baiting is not healthy for any sort of wildlife. It's very detrimental, but it helps you see more. So the reason that we don't bait and we do allow you to hunt normal agricultural fields is because I don't think it would be fair to say that, well, you can't hunt this spot because a farmer plants wheat there. Uh, that would exclude a ton of great dove hunting properties just because it's an agricultural practice. We are 100% for agricultural practices. We want people to hunt on those. We want ag and hunting to go together very well. That being said, you can't just go and take a big pile of seed and dump it out there to attract wildlife or migratory birds, at least. I don't know if that answers your questions or not.
Any tips on cleaning birds without making a complete mess? Those are actually pretty simple to clean with just your hands.
Yeah, they're real simple to clean. What I normally do, so there's not hardly any meat on the legs or the back or anything. So what I'll do, I'll take my thumb, there you stick it under the breastbone, pop it out. You'll end up getting a nice little heart-shaped breast with the wings on it. You clip the wings, peel the skin off, and you got a nice little breast to eat.
It's fairly clean, and like I said, you can use your thumb to break into the cavity of the dove, which sounds gross, but just do a quick YouTube search. I wish I had a demonstration of that. I was going to if I would have shot doves that day. But yeah, it's pretty simple. Okay, I'm new to hunting. Where and how do I tag or turn in dove for purposes of the limit?
So you do not have to check these in. You do not have to turn them in. It's kind of an honor system. So you can shoot your 15 dove, and that's when you stop. So you as an ethical hunter need to know, okay, I've shot my 15. That is my limit for the day. The next day you can go out and shoot another limit. Now there is a possession limit, and I think for dove, let's see. So you can have one limit for each day hunted. So your first day you can have 15, your second day you can have 30, the third day you can have 45. After you get the 45, you need to consume those doves. The goal is not to just have, thousands of dove in your possession. After you get your 45, you need to eat them. After you eat it, can you have more? But at no point in time, if you've hunted 3 days of the season, can you have more than 45 dove. And like I said, you don't have to check them in or anything. Now, when I'm a game warden, I'm checking you in the field, I will check. It isn't totally uncommon for me to come up and check somebody and them have old dove or old scraps of dove in their cooler or in the back of their truck. And I'll basically like, well, if it's the first day of season and you have a bunch of old dove in there, well, there's obviously something wrong.
Yeah. Okay, I want to speak on this a little bit more. Which do you recommend, 20 gauge or 12 gauge? So we said, 20, 12, 16 all works. Now, depending on your size, I think this can make a difference in a recommendation. If you're smaller stature, a 20 gauge would be lighter for you. You could hold it out there longer if you're fairly small. When I started, I'm fairly small myself, and I had a youth model 20 gauge, and that, it's a shorter barrel, so I don't have as far of range, but I was able to hold that a lot longer, and I didn't get fatigue as fast. So I feel like that's something to be mentioned, customizing to your unique situation. To be clear, Eurasian collared doves do not count towards the 15 bird limit, correct?
Correct. Yep, they're an invasive species. The only thing is if you're shooting those, make sure that you're not cleaning them in the field. So if I'm a game warden, I come and check you and you have 20 breasted out dove, I can't tell once that dove is breasted out if it's a Eurasian or if it's a normal. So to me, it looks like you're over limit. If you will leave a wing or the head attached to those dove and not clean them till you get home, that makes it easier on us to check, and then we don't have to figure out if you shot over limit or didn't.
Good deal. Possession limit, does that count at the house?
Possession limit, does that count?
So once you get to the point,
Yes,
you get
so
to-
so the possession limit, like I said, even if you're at your house, if you've hunted one day, you can have 15. If you've hunted 2 days, you can have 30. If you've hunted 3 days, you can have 45. You're not supposed to have 45 dove in your possession at any one time. Another thing on that, so if you're hunting in a group, you need to keep your dove separately than other people's dove. I should have covered that. So like if me and Kasie are hunting, I can't have 40 dove in my bag and her have 5. Or if I take my kid hunting, I can't shoot his limit too, even though he's a legal hunter. He needs to shoot his birds and I shoot mine. So if I shoot my 15, I'm done. And then he can continue to hunt, but I can't shoot his limit for him. And if you're with a big group, you got to keep all those separately. You can't do like a group bag where you're just piling all the dove up together. You need to know which dove you shot and to make sure nobody goes over limit.
Do you recommend steel shot?
You can absolutely use steel shot. The disadvantage to steel shot, in my opinion, is steel is lighter than lead. So of course, the heavier your projectile, the more knockdown power it'll have. For dove, dove probably does not matter at all. But steel is, in my opinion, a little less effective than lead just because it's not as heavy. But with the steel, you don't have to worry about lead poisoning, of course. So kind of personal preference on that.
Okay, I think we just went through all the questions.
Okay. I think was there a second part to that baiting question? I can't remember.
Explain it says bait must be gone for 10 days before.
Yes,
hunting.
yeah, so the bait has to be gone 10 days before you hunt it. Yeah, absolutely, yes. That goes for ducks, dove, anything. With ducks, we battle people, pouring out corn and seed in the water, which is illegal, of course. With dove in agriculture, so say I grow a sunflower field, I can brush hog that sunflower seed and I can mechanically manipulate that field. So that means if something happens, I can actually mechanically manipulate that field and I can still hunt dove over it. With waterfowl, you cannot. So with waterfowl, it has to be a normal agricultural practice. You can't go in and physically manipulate it to improve your duck hunting. I know that's kind of confusing, especially if you're a new hunter, but if you have questions with it, I can answer it. Most people, unless you're an ag farmer, you're probably not going to have to worry about it. Just don't dump out feed and you'll be fine.
How busy does Lexington WMA get during dove season?
It definitely gets a lot of use, but I wouldn't let it deter me from going out there. I mean, there's people that use it. That's what they're for. But I think you could probably find a good quiet spot to dove hunt as well.
I also think if you don't go out on the weekends, opening weekend, that's usually the big, huge push for people to be
Yeah.
out in there. I think if you were to manage to get out there on a weekday, you'd have a lot less crowding.
Yeah, or even the second and third weekend, or if you really wanted to, if you go out there in October, I guarantee you there will probably not be anybody dove hunting in October. Most of those guys will switch over to deer. So during the week is great. Dove season is kind of the opening weekend is a really big deal. The second weekend is actually a free hunting weekend where you don't need a hunting license to hunt dove,
Also a big deal.
which is kind of a cool deal. So people go out for that. But then after those first 2 weekends, the participation drops off a lot.
Yeah, we just see a shift on focusing on deer hunting at that point. I would say.
Yeah, people get into more deer hunting mode.
Dove season's a big season because it's like the season opener for
Yeah.
hunting season is
And the weather's nice, you
Yeah.
can take small kids out, not worry about them being cold. You can take a cooler out there and have some snacks and have a bunch of cold water handy, and it's a really fun social deal.
Cody says, appreciate you. Western Oklahoma is amazing to dove hunt. Eastern is harder, but get to Western for a hunt. You will be hooked for life. Yeah, I was going to elaborate a little bit more. Some of the best dove populations I've seen are in Western Oklahoma. I used to work for the OLAP program and I was out there all the time and I saw tons and tons of doves. So I would say from central, like Eastern's so hard to hunt for me. But central to Western is where in the farther west you go, it seems like the better.
Yeah, so like I talked about, dove key in on early successional habitat, which is like the first thing that grows. So weeds and forbs and grasses is great. Now, the further east you go, you get into more trees. So trees aren't near as good for dove as the open is. But you go out in Western Oklahoma, it's all cattle pastures and rangeland. So I mean, it's just really ideal dove habitat.
Someone said, would you rather flush the dove out when hunting them?
You can do that. I've seen situations where that's the only way you'll be able to
Yeah.
harvest them. Ideally, if you can set up in a spot that they want to fly or where their food source is, you'll have better luck. Because it never fails. If you go out there and you harvest a dove, you're going to walk out there to get it. and you're going to have dove trying to land on top of you. And, you know, it's hard to harvest those dove once you're out there trying to get it. But when you're jumping dove, it's kind of like that all the time. You're walking through a field trying to jump some dove, and some are going to be flying around you, and you're going to spook them off. But if you can kind of tuck up in some grass and sit and wait, usually you'll have better luck that way. Not saying all the time, but in general, I think you'd be safer setting up where they want to be.
I agree with that. Your regular hunting license covers migratory birds.
Yeah, it does. So for dove, you do need the HIP permit, which is that free permit you can do on our website, and it's like a federal survey. We used to keep track of migratory bird numbers. Now with waterfowl, you do have to have a federal waterfowl stamp and a state waterfowl stamp. If you have a lifetime license, you do not have to have the state. You do have to have the federal and the HIP.
Before we lose any more people on here, because I know you guys got to get back to your lives and your work and everything, this is going to be recorded and it's going to be posted to our YouTube channel, Outdoor Oklahoma. Give me a couple of days to get this up and running on our YouTube channel, but it's under the Learn to Hunt playlist. So I have probably 3 or 4 years worth of classes on there if you just want to, you know, put it on in the background, listen to us talk all day. But the newest one, this one will be up there as by Friday. So
Yep. On brands of decoys, we're not really gonna, you know, say a brand. Mojo was kind of the one that started the motion activated decoys. Now there's a whole bunch of different brands that have them. They're all good. Get one that looks like a dove and get one that has movement, and then you'll be just fine.
yeah, if you save money, you can get the ones that are wind powered too, that
Yeah.
still get that motion.
If you're in a windy area, they're great. If
Yeah.
you're not in a windy area, they're kind of rough.
True.
I do want to plug a class that I have coming up. So September 21st, I'm going to do an adult hunter ed class. It's kind of different than our normal hunter ed. It'll be geared towards new hunters that have never really had that much experience. And even an experienced hunter would learn something. But it'll be a hunter education class. You'll get certified, and it'll just be a really in-depth kind of knowledge. I mean, it'll be a really good class. If any of you guys are interested in it, any of y'all have never hunted before and want to get in it, and you're over 18, or just you have hunted before and you want to learn some new stuff, we'll talk about, you know, some updated research on turkeys and deer, and, you know, some habitat management kind of stuff. It'll be a really good class if anyone's interested.
Yeah, and I just put the link to our outdoor calendar on there, and you can see the whole list of the hunter eds available. And I'm also going to plug something. If you're interested in deer hunting next, we are doing a in-person 3-hour workshop here at Arcadia Lake at our Conservation and Education Center. And there is a link for that as well on the Go Outdoors. And it's a little bit better than these virtual classes. I get to be face to face with you guys, and we'll have some biologists and game wardens and some members of Oklahoma hunting and hunters and anglers on there. And it'll be a good time. So do you have a deer hunting class?
There you go.
You sure do.
We also partnered with OHA, Oklahoma Hunters and Anglers, on an adult mentored hunt. It's the first weekend of December's holiday antlerless season. You do have to apply for it. You apply through their OHA's website, but it'll be a $25 application, and it'll be a really fun hunt. We'll teach you everything you need to know from getting started to you know, harvesting a deer and game processing. We'll talk about hunter safety. We'll talk about deer biology. We're only going to take 5 people the first year, and the goal is to take those 5 people who have never hunted before and be able to make them leave there being a confident hunter. So it'll be a fun class. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I just linked that. I don't think they probably have, I didn't check real fast. I'm just trying to be fast. I don't know if they have the event, 0 events available, but just save that link or just remember
It's on there.
it's on there.
Yeah, you can apply for it now.
Apply here for mentor doe hunt. Okay, perfect. So it's just not considered an event. Okay,
Yep.
so just scroll down and you can apply for it there. That would be a really cool, pretty immersive
It'll be a very in-depth, very hands-on.
lodging, all that stuff.
Each person will have their own mentor. We're staying at the top of the notch lodge. We're going to have food for everybody. It'll be a great class. It'll be $25 to enter and $250 to help cover with room and board.
And this is through a conservation organization. So,
a nonprofit.
Nonprofit. So, okay, we made a whole hour out of this deal, which is pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up if you guys don't have any more questions here. And as always, if you guys have more questions, email me and I can always, if I don't know them, I can find you someone that does. So, and our next class will be in a week or two. You'll have to check the outdoor calendar. It is over resident goose and teal hunting. And then after that, we'll go into archery and then we'll do muzzleloader, quail and rifle and all those things. So we'll cover every season on these Learn to Hunts. Thank you guys so much.
Yep, thanks, guys.